Welcome to the channel called English for Emerson. I wanted to make this video today for Emerson about his Grandpa Chuck and put it on the channel, English for Emerson. It might not be of that much interest to all of my millions of students in the galaxy, but I hope it's of interest to my number one student, Emerson. This is a picture, Emerson, of your Grandpa Chuck. He's got not the biggest fish in the world right there. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about your Grandpa Chuck. I don't know how well you remember him. You know, you can look on your map and find Detroit, Michigan on your big map. That's where Grandpa Chuck was born. It's a long way from Oregon. And he came out to Oregon when he was very young. And he grew up in a little town, which is northwest of Portland, called Scappoose. It was a little town back then. It's getting a little bit bigger now. It's still a small town. And he went to a school for college called the University of Oregon. It's in Eugene. And that's where he met Grandma Sue. I believe that they met on a blind date, which means Grandpa Chuck had a friend named Gaylord, and my mom had a friend named Jan. And my mom and dad, they didn't know each other, but Gaylord said, "Hey, I know this guy named Chuck. He'd like to go on a date with somebody nice." And Jan said, "Well, I've got this friend named Susie. She'd like to go out with somebody nice." And they said, "Well, let's get these two together." And so I think they went out, had a blind date. It's a date where you go to meet somebody who you have no idea who they are. You've never met them before. Well, they hit it off. And so that's the end of that deal. They were together ever since. And, gosh, you know, when Grandpa Chuck grew up out in Scappoose, it was a good place to go fishing. I went out there fishing when I was a kid a few times, but I could never catch a fish. But Grandpa Chuck was a big-time fisherman. He caught this here fish, but he caught some big fish. I'll put some pictures up of some big fish that Grandpa Chuck caught. He was way into that deal. And the other thing I will say about Grandpa Chuck is he was a very, very funny guy. Oh my gosh, how we loved to laugh. We'd laugh at some of the stupidest shows on TV. One of our favorite ones was this guy, it's an old movie where this guy named Philo Beto, he goes around in a pickup truck with this ape that he names Clyde. Oh my gosh, they have all these adventures and getting fights and everything. And this ape is just absolutely hilarious. And we used to laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. Oh my gosh, we had a good time. Grandpa Chuck was always good for a good laugh. I remember this one time, I'll tell a story. I got a lot of stories, but I'll tell this one of his famous stories. Is that he was on a fishing trip, of course. He loved to go fishing, and he went to Alaska with one of his best friends. This guy's name was Jake. He was a very serious guy. They had met in the Army. Grandpa Chuck was in the Army. Oh, that's another bunch of stories. But anyway, Grandpa Chuck was in the Army with this guy, Jake, and they were friends after that for forever. Anyway, they went fishing in Alaska one time, and they get put in a boat with a guy who was a real, what you call a real, he was a piece of work. This guy was always telling all these jokes, all kinds of nasty jokes he was telling over and over and over and again. And my dad and Jake just sat there and listened to this guy patiently as he just told all these stupid jokes, one after another. And finally, this goes on like for a whole day or two. And finally, after he gets just about worn out, my dad says to Jake, real quiet, he says, "You know what? I think this guy's about worn out." He says, when he finally shuts up and asks us what we do for a living, "Jake, why don't you tell him that you're a Catholic priest?" I'll put up a picture of a Catholic priest. This is somebody who serves, a man who serves in the Catholic Church, and he's very, religious. My dad says to Jake, he says, "Why don't you tell this guy tell him that you're a Catholic priest. Well, Jake was not a Catholic priest. He worked as an engineer. But Jake said, okay, Chuck. And Jake was very serious, and he actually was Catholic. And anyway, so this guy, sure enough, he finally shuts up, and he asks Grandpa Chuck, he says, what do you do, Chuck? And Chuck says, my dad says, well, I run hotels. And I'm in the hotel business. Oh, all right. And Jake, what do you do? And Jake says, I'm a Roman Catholic priest. And anyway, this guy stops because he'd been telling all kinds of nasty jokes the whole time. And he says, oh my God. Oh no. Oh, Father, please forgive me. I've sinned. Oh my gosh, I grew up Catholic. I knew all the nuns. They were so wonderful to me. And the priests were so wonderful. Oh, I feel so awful that I've been telling all these jokes. I just can't believe this. Oh, I repent. It's just terrible. Anyway, it goes on like this. And finally, at the end of the weekend or the week or whatever, my dad and Jake told the guy that he was not, in fact, a Roman Catholic priest. And the guy laughed and laughed and laughed. Oh, anyway, it was Grandpa Chuck had a great sense of humor. Oh, man, we loved to laugh. You know, the other thing about Grandpa Chuck was, he was a big-time traveler. We loved to go on trips when we were kids. And I remember some of them were fun, some of them not so much. But we did go on some trips, and we had a mountain cabin. I might put a picture up here, up at Mount Hood. We used to love to go up there and go skiing. And, oh gosh, we had fun. We went up there skiing a lot, actually, when we were kids. Spent a lot of time up at Mount Hood. And, you know, Grandpa Chuck, with Grandma Sue, mostly. But, you know, I told you he went to Alaska. Well, they went to Africa, Thailand. You can find these places on your map. Egypt, well, that's part of Africa. But Japan, and at one point, he had a map put up, kind of like yours, Emerson, of the whole world, and he put a dot, like a red pin, everywhere he had been all over the world. And, I mean, it got to the point where that thing was just covered with pins and dots. And they went on trips with friends that they'd known their whole life, practically, all the way back to college. The people who had introduced them, Gaylord and Jan Molds, they went on trips with them all over the world, and other people that they had met. Oh, and people from college. It was incredible how they were world travelers. I'll put up some pictures of the different places they'd gone. But the thing I remember most about Grandpa Chuck was he was a builder. Oh, man. So this mountain cabin that we have up at Mount Hood, at the time that we had that done, Grandpa Chuck, he worked in finance or something where you loan people money for projects and then they gradually pay you back. He was a finance officer. He didn't like it much. Anyway, in the process of having this mountain cabin built by this guy named John Cool, he said, you know, he got to know the guy. He says, I'd like to come work for you and learn how to build houses. And the guy said, well, sure, come on, let's go, let's do it. And so Grandpa Chuck went to work for this guy, learned how to build houses. And then he started to he went on his own and started contracting work to build houses for people. And built several houses. In fact, he built our house up on Mountain Lane where we grew up here in Wilsonville. Nice place. That's where we had the horses. We had a good time out there. Beautiful house. Beautiful view of the sunset. He loved the views. Oh man, he loved the views. Anyway, I remember I was about what you'd call in 8th grade or a freshman in high school. It was around 14, 15 years old, somewhere in there. And he had seen this advertisement in the Oregonian newspaper for a beachfront hotel cabins called the Cove, and a place called Cannon Beach, Oregon. And he said, you know, I think that rings a bell. That rings a bell. I think I know what that place is. And so he got the ad, and he took the paper, and the next morning he drove down to the beach to check this place out. And he drives by it and says, yeah, that's the place I know of. It's these cabins that are right on the beach. So he went to a couple of real estate agents in town. A real estate agent is someone who helps someone who owns a property to sell it. They're called realtors or real estate agents. And he went to a real estate agent in town there and says, hey, you know about these cabins? This guy put this ad in the paper. And they said, oh, that guy, he's terrible. We don't want to deal with him. No way. Don't want to deal with him. This guy's a jerk. Not a nice person. Not a nice person. He went to another real estate agent. They said, that guy? Oh, no. I don't want to deal with it. That guy's a jerk. He's the biggest jerk in town. Well, Grandpa Chuck said, my goodness gracious. This is not good. So he just drove over there and knocked on the door of the office of the hotel. And this old guy comes out. He was smoking a cigar, which is like a big, I'll put a picture up. And he goes, yeah, what can I do for you? And Grandpa Chuck says, well, are you the owner of this place? And the guy says, yeah, I'm the owner of this place. And Grandpa Chuck says, well, you know, I saw your ad in the paper, and I went to a couple of real estate agents in town, and they told me that you're the biggest jerk in town. And the guy practically spit out the cigar, and he says, is that what they say about me? I just love it. And Grandpa Chuck went in with the guy, and they sat down and talked about the property, and they agreed to a sale without the realtors who didn't want to deal with this guy. They just did it with the two of them. So he bought these cabins, and this place was a dump. We stayed down there after he bought it. I mean, these cabins were old, and they were rickety and not nice. And his idea was to tear these cabins down and build a hotel on the beach at Cannon Beach. And he talked to some other hotel owners there and how it was to build. And they said, well, it was absolutely awful. The city council is the people who run the government of the town. He said they were very the people who had built hotels said that the city council, the planning commission, the planning department of the town was very difficult to work with, almost impossible. And Grandpa Chuck said, well, who did you hire to design the hotel and so forth? And they said, we hired architects. Architects are people who design buildings. I'll put the word up here. Architects design buildings. They said, we hired the best ones from Portland. And they made up the designs, and the people here at the beach hated it. They wouldn't have it. They gave us a hard time. Terrible experience, they said. Terrible. We'd never do it again. Grandpa Chuck thought, oh my gosh, what have I done buying this property? So he found an architect who lived in the town, at Cannon Beach, at the beach. And he went and talked to the guy, and the guy said, yeah, it's terrible. He says, but I know the architect at the beach. Can't remember the guy's name. Can't remember his name now. Anyway, he said, I know all those people. They're friends of mine. I know what they want. Trust me. I'll make you out a plan, and I guarantee we'll get it approved on the first try. I guarantee it. I'm going to make you a nice plan. So Grandpa Chuck said, okay, first try. Let's do it. So he wrote out this big drawing of a hotel. And I remember as a kid, our dining room table at the house had a big piece of paper all on top of it with a great big hotel drawn on it. It was a beautiful picture. It's called a blueprint. The architect gets out a ruler and a pencil and draws all the lines and everything and makes the design of the hotel. And I remember thinking, as I looked at this thing, I thought to myself, I think that Mom and Dad have gone crazy. They're thinking about building this thing. It was a great big project. Anyway, the guy was right. They took this plan to the city council of Cannon Beach and they approved it. And they got a loan from the bank to build the hotel. And pretty soon they went and tore down the cabins and burned them down and had the excavators come in and the bulldozers and the trucks, the dump trucks, and hauled away all the old cabins. And then it was just cleaned off. And then started the process of building this big hotel called Schooner's Cove at Cannon Beach. It was a big project, a big project. We went down there like on the weekends to go check it out. It started off, of course, by coming in and putting in the cement, the concrete, and then slowly it went from the ground up. We couldn't believe it. It was a big thing. And for, I think it was over a year, Grandpa Chuck would drive down there every single day. Sometimes he spent the night, but most of the time he drove all the way back home at the end of the day. A lot of driving back and forth to the beach. And anyway, he got done with this hotel. Well, you can't sell a hotel that isn't running. And they had some experience in the hotel business because they owned a hotel called the Lake Shore in Lake Oswego. It was not a real nice place. It was okay. We went swimming there a lot when I was a kid. It was okay. It was on the lake. But it wasn't a big money maker. It was just a normal hotel. So anyway, they said, well, we have to run this thing. Even if we're going to sell it, you can't sell an empty hotel that doesn't have any business. So they had to buy the beds. They had to buy the sheets, the towels, the soaps, the coffee pot, some basic little things, all the toilet paper and all the Kleenex and all the soap. Did I already say soap? I can't remember. All the televisions. They had to put everything in the rooms and then hire people to run the laundry and change the beds and everything, get it all going. And pretty soon they opened it up. And by golly, people started coming. People started coming from all over. And pretty soon this place was running like a top. I mean, it was doing great. And Grandpa Chuck said, shoot, this place is doing great. We're not selling this thing. Beautiful place. We went down there. Oh man, it's nice right on the coast. I'm putting up pictures of it. And I remember years later, I was going to acupuncture school in Portland, Oregon. That's where you learn how to do this thing called acupuncture. You put needles in people to try to bring them healing. I was not too good at it. It didn't work out so well for me. But anyway, beside the point, I was going to this school, and I met other people who were in the program. And I remember this time I was talking to this girl, and I said, well, what'd you do this weekend? This was on a Monday. She said, oh, I went to the beach. I said, the beach? Where'd you go? She said, Cannon Beach. I said, really? No kidding. I know all about Cannon Beach. She said, look at the picture. And she handed me a picture of her and her family at Cannon Beach, and they were standing right in front of the Schooner's Cove Hotel. I said, is that Cannon Beach right there? She said, yeah. I said, that hotel, my dad built that hotel. She said, no way. I said, yeah. That's Schooner's Cove. He built that back when I was in high school. Anyway, from there, Grandpa Chuck and my mom, they bought some other hotels at the beach and developed a very successful business. And so anyway, great story. Oh man, Grandpa Chuck and Grandma Sue, they knew how to build stuff. Years later, they got this house. They wanted to move from the house that they had up on the hill in Wilsonville. And my dad always liked to have a good view. He said, this time, I want to get a house with a view of the river. He says, I'm doing it. I've had enough of looking at the sunset. I want to look at the river. Grandma Sue said, that sounds good to me. Let's do it. So they found a house on the river. And they said, we found a house. And they took us to it. And we went in there. And I looked at this place and I said, you got to be kidding me. This place is a dump. It was the ugliest house I ever saw. Oh my gosh, it was ugly. I mean, you just drove into this place and it was just like, it was all wrong. You walked into the house and it had this weird loft. It's kind of like a raised floor. I remember we walked in there and there was some guy living there. He had a mattress, a bed thrown on the floor up in this loft. Oh, this house was ugly. I said, Mom and Dad, you got to be kidding me. This place is a dump. They said, relax. We have a plan. Well, it's true that they did. It's true that they did. I mean, they knew how to do stuff. My gosh, did they know how to do stuff. They had a team of people come in and take the whole roof off of that house and knock that whole loft out. And they totally redid it. They put a whole new roof on the house and got rid of that loft thing, made all the floor normal. Oh my gosh, that place was beautiful. I don't know if I'll be able to find a picture of it to put up here. Oh my gosh. That turned into the nicest place with the best view of the river right there. Oh, it was beautiful. They knew how to remodel stuff. Oh my gosh. I remember one time they got this hotel. I think it's called Pelican Shores. Yeah, that's right. When they bought it, it was called the Red Carpet Inn. There was this woman who answered the phones, who worked the front desk, and you'd call up, and because they were working down there trying to fix it up, and she'd answer the phone, she'd say, "Red carpet." I think I called back just a couple of times just to hear her answer the phone. Oh, she was a piece of work. Anyway, they bought this hotel. It was oceanfront, okay? So that means it looks right out at the beach. And when they went in to look at this place thinking about buying it. And they go into the office, and you walk in, and you had the little lady, red carpet, sitting at the desk. And she would help you check in your room. And Grandpa Chuck said, "Well, what's back there?" And the lady says, "That's our supply closet." And Grandpa Chuck says, "Well, what's behind it?" "Nothing's behind it. The ocean's behind it." Grandpa Chuck said, "Oh, no. This is perfect for me. This is perfect for me." So they bought this place, the Red Carpet. And Grandpa Chuck said, "Listen," he said to the builders, he says, "knock that wall out. Knock that wall out." They said, "What?" He said, "Knock it out. Open that whole area up back in there. And then put windows that look out at the beach." And the builder said, "Are you sure you want to do that?" Grandpa Chuck said, "Yeah, I'm sure. Knock the wall out." So the lady says, "Oh my gosh, I have to move my stuff here." She cleared out, and they came in and they knocked the wall out and took all the junk out of the back room and put some nice windows and then opened it all up. And here is the new office. There, when you walked in the door, there was a beautiful office and you just looked out at the beach. Oh, it was beautiful. People, they just couldn't wait to buy a room with that beautiful view of the beach. Before, you couldn't see the beach at all when you walked in the office. Just a little lady there. Red carpet. That was it. Anyway, that turned out to be a great deal. Well, what else have I got to say? We miss Grandpa Chuck. Oh man, did we have some good laughs. And I know his friends miss him too. I have to say that Grandpa Chuck and Grandma Sue did such a wonderful job. They have the two of the nicest daughters you'd ever, Auntie Lori and Auntie Jen are the two of the best people I ever met in my life. Now, I don't know what they did wrong with me. But 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Auntie Lori and Auntie Jen are such great people. And they have such wonderful friends that from their whole life, all the way back to childhood. Now, some of those people, of course, have passed away as the years have gone by. But, growing up, I have to say, my parents' friends, such great people. And I know that they all miss Grandpa Chuck very much. So, Emerson, I've put up several pictures here of your Grandpa Chuck and some of the houses and the hotels. And I don't know what else to tell you, buddy. You had a great grandpa, and I want you to be proud of that name, Weakley, because it's a great legacy that he leaves behind, and you're part of it. Okay, buddy. We'll see you next time on English for Emerson. Bye-bye.